Hi friends, it's Sarah from Ruffles and rainboots.com. So I'm going to be using a particular material for this hat right here. This was a reader request. Here it is in natural light. It looks really good. This is a beautiful piece of fabric. It's actually in the felt aisle. I found it at Hobby Lobby, but it's got like a fabric backing and a leather-like look in the front. There's multiple colors. So I'm going to be using this. Let me show you the back of the tag right here. You can see it's $1.49, at least where I am at Hobby Lobby. I'm going to be using some pre-cut Sherpa fleece just because I think the colors go well together, and I'm going to be using my pattern, the Scandinavian Sweeties, which you can find down below. You can use the acrylic pieces like I'm using here or the paper pattern. So I'm going to add length to this and width to this because as indicated in the pattern, we need a non-stretchy hat to be a little bit bigger, but the body and the base are cut true to size. With Sherpa fleece, if you don't know, go ahead and do a little cleanup here because we don't want to glue or sew onto that. So here I am going to attempt the hot glue portion of this. I clipped it together. I used the hottest hot glue. I used a beautiful thin line of glue, pressed it down, held it all the way down, and then I set that aside. If you want to use the paper pattern, again, you can cut it with scissors. You don't have to use acrylic pieces and rotary. Both of them work. I'm going to sew this one with a very thin seam allowance, so on the 1/8 inch side, and you can see I'm going to use some needle nose pliers to pull this out. For those of you who are new here and this is your first time, hi, my name is Sarah. I share a lot of tutorials based on this pattern because it is the best-selling pattern on the internet for gnomes. It's easy to put together with a hot glue gun or a sewing machine. So you can see now we've poked out the little tip, and I like the scrunch of this, you know, like I really like the feel of this particular pattern or particular fabric. So here is the hot glue version. It's set the entire time, so that's many minutes to dry. And watch this. You can kind of see it in the bottom corner as a le boop. It just undid itself. But the cool part is you can just rip that off. Yeah. So if you have a fabric tape, I would try that for a no hot glue. You can also do what I'm going to try and attempt to do next week or the week after. I'm not sure. I'm going to try it a different way just because I really want to get a no-sew version of this. Because I had the sewing machine out, I just went ahead and sewed the body. Again, I used a 1/4 on the body because of Sherpa fleece. Got to make sure we capture the actual fabric instead of all the fluff. If I'm going a little fast, don't worry. You're going to be able to go to the Scandinavian Sweeties playlist here on YouTube, where I have shown so much inspiration for this single pattern. So I'm just putting in a north, south, east, west right here, the pins, so that I can take this to the sewing machine. And again, you can use whatever seam allowance you want. I tend to do a little bit bigger seam allowance on the Sherpa. So here we're just going to turn everything right side out, being sure to poke out the tip of the body just like we did with the hat. We're going to align those two exactly because that's going to give us the best scrunch for our hat. So I'm just going to flip this right sides out. And as everything was sewing, I'm just going to rub those seams in between my fingers, A, looking for holes, and B, setting those seams flat. Now this part's the standard part of making a gnome. We're going to need something for weight and something for stuffing. I'm also going to show a wire that I've shown many times here on the channel to make the entire thing bendable, not just the hat. When we make just the hat bendable, it tends to break apart if you don't sew it in place. But when we make the body, throughout the whole entire body, it works a little better for a little longer. So I'm going to use 14 gauge wire for this. I put the little loop at the bottom, turned it 90 degrees, added an inch above the body, and then I'm going to make another loop, making sure all the pokey bits are in the inside. If you're using a thinner fabric, you may even want to run some electrical tape or something around that pokey end. So I'm just going to pop this all the way up into the very tip, bend the wire, and then it's hard to see the opening, but let me show you. There's a little opening here that we left, and we're just going to pop that in. And then we're going to straighten this out after we put this in the very, very bottom. Easy peasy. We're all done with that part. Now it's time to stuff it with polyfill. This is poly stuffing, fiber fill. You can get this on Amazon or any craft store. And I'm going to speed this part up because it's just literally stuffing it. So one tip I have here, if you're new to making holiday gnomes, Christmas gnomes, whatever, overstuff it, because when you squeeze it, it should bounce back to its original shape, and polyfill actually degrades over time, so we want to add a little bit of extra. You can see me pulling that wire right to the edge of the opening because we will trap that inside that entire open edge. So I'm going to now do that with a hot glue gun. I have also shared how to sew this in place. If you sell, it's recommended, it's not required. So I'm just going to close this opening up with glue and grab a couple clips to pop it in place and let it dry. Now with regards to beards, I already had this one cut. I really ended up not liking it, just to be fair. So I'm lining up the two tips right here, pulling down the hat all the way, trying to line up that seam, which I mess up in the end. And then I'm just kind of getting an idea for the scrunch. I pin it in place to see if I like it. It gives like very Sorting Hat vibes from Harry Potter. Hated the other beard. Looking at this like nice deep caramel. If you've never cut faux fur, you just need to score the backing. It's so nice. It produces a big fluffy beard. I'm going to do a drop V shape, which is just a drop of a 1/2 inch on either side, and then it's down to a V in the center. You can fold over the fur to get an exact, or draw on the back of the fur. No one's going to see it. So in order to glue that in place, I have to take out these pins, and so I'm going to just pop one in place. I think I like the placement of that. I'm going to hold the hat out of the way and then glue that down. You can absolutely hand stitch that on. You lovely crafter, you. If you like hand stitching. I'm trying to make myself learn embroidery. I haven't quite started yet, but I just like it so much that I think it's just so beautiful in the end. I want to try it. So here you can see I'm adding a generous portion of glue here because we have to get through those fibers on the Sherpa fleece. And now I'm going to put my nose in because the hat is secured. So it's just secured on one side, but it allows me to sort of put this in place. I'm splitting the faux fur, adding a generous portion of glue to that fabric backing, and then popping on a nose. I'm using here a 3/4 inch bead. You can use 1 inch. You can use teeny tiny wood rounds, whatever you would like. Make a nose out of polymer clay. Again, generous portion of hot glue because we know the outside doesn't like it, but I want to make sure that we actually get through those Sherpa fibers. And then here's where I realize, hey, kitten, those don't line up. Good job. Whoopsie. But it's okay. Only we notice things like this. But if you sell, try and make sure you don't make that mistake like I did. All right, so I'm just going to play with this for a little bit and see what I like. And then now I'm actually going to add on the trim. So the trim is the same Sherpa as the body. Again, that stretch is on the horizontal. I'm just going to wrap it around. A very technical way to measure and score it. That way I can just cut about an 1.5 inches all the way up. And you can see it curving in on itself. It's going to do that, and that actually is going to benefit us. But go ahead and take off any excess Sherpa. So we know that gluing to the actual leather is not a good idea. So I'm just going to glue up and down the bottom, and then that center line is actually going to go on the bridge of the nose. That right there is how I'm going to secure the front. And then all the glue is actually going to be right under the edge of the hat on the Sherpa fleece. And then to hide the edge, I just fold it over, add glue, and then press these two pieces together. I made a little pom-pom because of course I did. Just had this scrap left over and I don't like wasting anything. So I'm just going to take all of the corners of this square-ish piece and fold them into the center, rub it in my hand after it's dry, and then glue that to the very top. I am always asked about the drop test, and I'm going to show you, like, I don't like to edit anything out or pretend or whatever. So look, this is what I do to make sure I have all the material where it needs to be. I'll drop it, and when it lands consistently straight, then it's ready for me because that way it's solid, right? So that is what I do over and over until I get all that fluff and, weight into place. And this is it for the final project. I really like him. I was super bummed I couldn't glue it and offer that as a no-sew solution. So I'm going to create another gnome with the other hat that I already cut. Let me know what you think of it. If you use fabric tape on this, let me know as well. I'd love the tips. As always, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Please like, share, and subscribe for more crafty fun.